All right, so we are live. Let me see here before we get rolling. Make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, so all right, we're here. SEC quarterback talk, week 1 of the college football season, and we're going to be doing this every week. We're going to be previewing, SEC quarterbacks, talk about who they're going up against, the matchups they're going up against, and what factors or what type of throws and plays these quarterbacks need to make. So we'll be having a preview show like we're doing here, and then starting next week we'll have a recap show, a reaction show. So we'll have 2 SEC specific quarterback show. So we're finally here. A lot of big games this week. There are 6 SEC teams that have FCS opponents. If you want to throw in Temple, then make it 7. But we're going to talk about SEC quarterbacks. We're going to dive into each game and talk about what we want to see from the quarterbacks, what we think they need to do in order for their team to win. Like Nussmeier, LSU against USC. What type of throws does he need to make for them to beat USC? Weigman against Notre Dame. What type of throws and plays do you want to see from him? Or does he need to make to beat Notre Dame? Right, we got some close games, Florida and Miami. What does Mertz need to do against Miami for the Gators to have success? But we also have some smaller games, and obviously the games that are against FCS opponents we're still going to touch on. But we have some interesting games like Texas against Colorado State, South Carolina, Old Dominion, Kentucky, Southern Miss. We have games where teams should still win by a handily amount, but they're still worth talking about. We're going to be talking about what we want to see from each quarterback when it comes to those games. With that said, let's go ahead and just dive right into the games. Let's go ahead and we're going to handle the 4 big games first, right? We're going to talk about Florida against Miami and what Mertz needs to do. Then we're going to talk about Garrett Nussmeier and USC against USC, Connor Weigman against Notre Dame, and Carson Beck against Clemson. These are probably the 4 most biggest SEC games, SEC quarterback matchup games. And then we'll hit on the easy games per se, and then the easier games per se. And we do have one underdog in the SEC this week, and that's Vandy against Virginia Tech, which we'll touch on as well. So let's talk about Florida first. Let's talk about what Florida quarterback will have to do. Graham Mertz. What Florida quarterback Graham Mertz will have to do against Miami to have success. And we did a preview video of this. Each week we'll have 3 or 4 games we do a deep dive on. We'll show some film. But let's talk about what Mertz needs to do against Miami's defense. And before we do that, I think we need to talk about Miami's defense. Last year, Miami only gave up 30 points or more 3 times during the regular season. One of those games was against Drake May, one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Another one of those games was against who was it against? Texas A&M, and that was when Miami already had a big lead, and A&M was able to score towards the end, right? So a solid defense, only giving up 227 yards per game through the air, which isn't elite per se, but still on the better side of the ACC. They weren't really giving up a lot of big plays. So with all these defense, like we're going to talk about, excuse me, I'm sorry, but with all these defenses we're talking about, we can only go off of the 2023 season, but I still think Miami's defense is going to be a solid defense for the ACC. So what does Mertz need to do? What does he have to do to put Florida in a situation to beat Miami? And right now, I think it's 3 points, 2.5 points, depending when you're watching this video, as far as Miami's the favorite right now. But number one, I think Mertz is going to have to play to his strengths, play to the strengths of the offense that Napier has. And one of his biggest strengths was getting the ball out quickly and avoiding sacks. Only 8% of the sacks he took last year were his fault. That's best in all the SEC. And just for some context, Jalen Milroe, 23% of his sacks were his fault. That led the SEC. And if you throw in Quinn Ewers, if you want to just grumble or package him up in the SEC, 25% of his sacks were his fault. So the fact that Mertz was able to get the ball out quickly and not take any sacks or not take a lot of unnecessary sacks, I think can be a big thing in keeping Florida in the down and distances that they want to be in, because they like those short to intermediate throws. That's where Mertz really kind of shines. That's where he's able to utilize and showcase his accuracy. So get the ball out quickly, avoid sacks, which is something he did really good on. Those are kind of his strengths. And that leads into point number 2. Take what the defense gives you. Control the game and control the clock. Like, take what the defense gives you. And we showcase that on some of our film breakdown of Mertz early. But if you can take what the defense gives you, that means you're probably making accurate throws, right? Which is going to be big to keep the clock moving, and you're keeping Cam Ward off the field. And number 3, I think you're going to have to make these type of throws to win the game, and that's taking deep shots, strategic deep shots. So I don't think you can dink and dunk the whole game and win. I think Miami's defense is going to be able to stop that and avoid the big plays and avoid points if you just dink and dunk. I think you do the dink and dunk of short to intermediate passes to set up the deep throw. So once the D starts creeping in, and you're probably going to do this off play action because Mertz is just more efficient off play action. Once the defense starts creeping in, that's when you take the deep shots. Last year, Mertz was 11 touchdowns to 0 picks off play action. 35% of his throws are off play action, 9.2 yards per attempt compared to 7.4 yards per attempt not using play action. So I think you're going to use play action to set up the deep ball, right? So Mertz, keys against Miami, play your strengths, get the ball out quickly, avoid sacks, control the game, and take some strategic deep shots, most likely off of play action. All right, let's talk about Carson Beck against Clemson. This game's interesting, right? I think a lot of this depends on what you think about Clemson. Is Clemson going to have a better offense than last year? If they are, then Beck may have to be asked to do some things to win this game. If they're not, then Beck may not have to do all that much to win this game, right? The line's 13.5 right now, which is probably fair, right? But I look at it in a few different points right now, right? You're going off Clemson's defense, who is probably their strongest part of their team. They definitely were last year, and I would kind of assume they're going to be their strongest part of the team this year. And this could be the toughest defense that Georgia faces. And if you look at Carson Beck against the best defense he faced last year, which is probably Bama, is when he struggled a little bit, right? He only had 2 games last year without a passing touchdown, and Alabama was one of those games. So how is he going to do against elite competition? Now he dominated against the rest of the SEC, against big games, right? Ole Miss, Mizzou, like he dominated against those teams. But this is an elite defense, right? So it could be the toughest defense that they face, right? So this game is a chance to really establish himself as the guy in 2024. I know Clemson's offense isn't great, but if Clemson's offense is improved, this game could be a lot closer than maybe people are thinking, right? So again, it depends what you think of Clemson as a team. But what do I want to see from Beck? What do I want to see against Clemson, this defense? I want to see a game like he had last year against Kentucky, Florida, Ole Miss. These games that were big games, good teams, but maybe not great defenses. I want to see him play like that against a great defense, against a defense like Clemson. If you're Clemson, can you take away the middle of the field against Carson Beck? Carson Beck, out of his 3,100, 3,300 yards passing last year, 2,400 yards were in between the numbers. Less than 1,000 were outside the number. So can you take away the middle of the field and force some tougher throws for Clemson's defense, right? A few things I want to see. Can Beck adapt to that? And can he have success against this elite defense like he had against the Kentuckys and Floridas and Ole Misses last year? And just going in, I do think Carson Beck's the best quarterback entering 2024. All right, 2 more big games we're going to talk about. Again, if I don't even know if the chat's up and going. I don't think we have a ton of people in here. So if you're watching this after the live show, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think about these games, what you think are the key factors to these quarterbacks. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. This is just specific SEC quarterback content. I was talking about Connor Weigman against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's defense, I think, goes without say, especially if you're a college football fan. They're going to be a top defense in all of college football. They definitely were last year, definitely against the pass last year. They were top 5 defense last year versus the pass, only giving up 154 yards per game, giving up less than 20 points per game, right? So I'd imagine that defense is going to be pretty solid. Again, we don't have any film to go off of, but just with how Freeman has a defense playing and just what they did last year, this defense is going to be pretty sound. So it's a tough defense for A&M and for Weigman and Klein to have this new offensive system that they're trying to break in week 1. But with that said, what do you want to see from Connor Weigman? Well, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll tell you what I want to see from Connor Weigman, what I think could help A&M win this game against Notre Dame's defense. And again, we're just talking quarterbacks. I understand there's a lot more that has to happen for these teams to win, special teams, defenses, how's offensive line play. I get it, but this is just a very niche channel where we talk all things quarterbacks. Let's talk Connor Weigman. Number 1, I want to showcase his legs against Notre Dame's defense without getting hit. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I want to have a design to run with him. It definitely can, but I want to showcase his athleticism. This is something we talked about in our big game breakdown when we talked about A&M and Weigman against Notre Dame. I want the defense to be thinking about Weigman as an athlete, to be thinking about, man, he's got some juice in his legs that we have to account for. So I want to showcase that early in the game. It can be a design run, but it can also be a rollout, throwing outside the pocket, just using his legs. The defense has to think about it, and hopefully it slows the defense down and it sets A&M up for other plays down the road or in the game, right? Number 2, I want to start off with comfortable throws, easy completions. Again, this is a new offense. It's week 1. It's one of the biggest games of the week and maybe even of the season when we come back and look at it. So I want to start with comfortable throws, easy checkdowns, get comfortable in that offense before you kind of expand on it. Take the check down. The check down can be good. You got great athletes everywhere. I know Notre Dame does as well, but sometimes living to see and fight another day is a successful strategy, especially at the beginning, right? So get comfortable, easy throws, showcase your legs without getting hit too much. But number 3, it's going to be a little bit different than the first 2. And I think you're going to have these type of throws to win. You're going to have to push the ball downfield. You're going to have to hit some really tough throws to win this game, in my opinion, because you can't let Notre Dame's defense suffocate you. I know I just mentioned take the check down, use your legs a little bit, right? But you can't let Notre Dame's defense suffocate you. So you do have to hit some deep throws, some pretty tough throws to win this game, in my opinion. I'm excited to see Klein and Weigman together. I think Weigman can really flourish in Klein's offense. And I think Klein's offense hasn't been maximized the past few years because of the quarterback play. They've been, RPOs, using the quarterback as a runner, which I think you'll use Weigman some, but they haven't pushed the ball downfield maybe as much as Klein would want. But now you have a quarterback with an elite arm, can throw from any arm angle, any position on the field. Was an elite baseball player. If you talk to any A&M baseball players, they'll tell you that Weigman could have been really, really good if he stuck with baseball. That tells me that I think Klein can really maximize his offense. So it starts week 1. It starts against Notre Dame. It's going to be, again, a tough game, tough competition. But I want to see Weigman push the ball downfield. I want to see him use his legs. And I want to see him make easy and comfortable throws. All right, one more big breakdown. I'll get a quick swig of water. All right, one more big breakdown. Let's talk Garrett Nussmeier against USC. And then we'll dive into some of the more. The number one question I have on USC's defense before we talk about the keys for Nussmeier is, will it be improved? I think yes. It's hard to be as bad as they were last year. Like, this definitely could still be a shootout, because if you're breaking down USC's offense, you could say, will LSU's defense be improved? Again, hard to be as bad as both these defenses were last year. Last year, USC's defense gave up 255 yards through the air per game, 438 total yards per game, and giving up right under 35 points, 34.9 points per game. All those stats are like bottom 2 or 3 in the Pac-12 last year. And they averaged like 41 points a game and still only won 5 games or 7 games or whatever it was, right? 8 games. I don't know if you include the bowl game or not. So will the defense be improved? I think yes. The main question, the bigger question will be, how improved will they be, and will they be improved enough to stop LSU's defense, right? So let's talk about Nussmeier. 3 keys for Nussmeier, I think, to win this game against USC, who may surprise some people, especially if Miller Moss comes out balling. Number 1, I want to see some boring throws. I want to see easy throws. Nussmeier has this gunslinger persona, essentially, which I get it and I love it, and it's my type of favorite quarterback, and I think he's going to be really good. But I want to see some boring throws. I want to see you just get into a rhythm, not having to force anything. We don't have to have a big play every play. Boring throws, 6 yards, 7 yards, incompletion, whatever it may be. I want to see some boring throws to start off. Number 2, I want you to go through your progressions, right? Like, we don't want to lock on a certain receiver or make up our mind who we're throwing to before the snap of the ball, unless you just have a mismatch you want to take a shot with. So I want to see you go through progressions. And we showed Nussmeier, it's not out yet, but we have a film breakdown of Nussmeier, what he needs to do, these type of throws, right? Where you start off with boring throws, then you go through your progressions and you get comfortable going through your progressions. You don't want to latch onto one receiver. You want to avoid those interceptions. A lot of times those interceptions come when you're just trying to sling it downfield, or you just kind of hone in on one guy. But number 3, I do want to bomb that thing, right? Like, you have this gunslinger persona, and I just talked about how you want to maybe play a different role, but at the same time, that's what makes you really good. And you arguably will always have the best receivers on the field. Week in and week out, your receivers are arguably going to be better athletes than the DBs that they're going up against, because LSU's receivers, especially as of late, are just NFL. Right? So if I'm Garrett Nussmeier, I still want to bomb it. I still want to push it downfield. And if this becomes a shootout, you may very well have to do that, right? So boring throws, go through your progressions, and then bomb it. Find your mismatch. Give your guys a chance because your guys are probably going to come down with it, right? Nussmeier's got a lot of experience for a backup, and I get just a lot of hype coming into it. If he lives up to the hype, I think he could be the best quarterback in the SEC, right? That would mean he's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football if he lives up to the hype. But it starts against USC. It starts in this big game on Sunday night, right? Yes, Sunday night. And I think some keys to make it simple: boring throws, go through progressions, and when the mismatch tells you to bomb it, chunk that thing. Right. So those are the 4 big matchups for the week that we have: Connor Weigman against Notre Dame, Garrett Nussmeier against USC, what we just talked about, Graham Mertz against Miami, and then Carson Beck against Clemson. All should be good games. The only SEC underdog of those 4 games is Florida against Miami, and it was like plus 2.5, plus 3, depending where you're looking. Really excited for all of those games. Okay, next category. All these games should be a win. Should be an easy win. These aren't FCS teams, but these should be an easy win. We probably won't spend as much time talking about these games as we did the bigger games, but I still want to touch on it. So Quinn Ewers against Colorado State. Colorado State's defense is not very good, especially last year against the Mountain West. Now, did they improve? Hopefully, kind of like we talked about in some other games. Hopefully, they did improve, but is it going to matter, right? So what do you want to see from Quinn Ewers against Colorado State, a team that you're favored to win by 32, who, by the way, I think has a good quarterback, an NFL talented receiver, and they'll be slinging the rock, right? So they may make some exciting plays. But what do you want to see from Quinn Ewers? Well, number one, I want to see him stay healthy. I got 5 keys for Quinn against Colorado State. I want to see you stay healthy. Don't take unnecessary hits. We talked about in the beginning of the video, sometimes he would hold on the ball too long at times, and a quarter of the sacks were his fault. So I don't want to see that. Don't take these unnecessary hits. You got Michigan coming up. Number 2, you have superior athletes everywhere. Let them do all the work. Get the ball to them quickly, right? Let them do all the work, stretch the field by getting the ball to them. Click number 3, I would like to see a deep shot or 2. I know I just talked about getting the ball out quickly. Let your running backs and receivers do all the work on some quick games. You don't want to show too much. But at the same time, I do want to see him hit a deep ball or 2 now. He gets criticized, I think, unfairly by his deep ball ability, which I think he has more of than given credit for. And while I don't want to show too many deep balls, you shouldn't have to complete a bunch of deep balls to beat Colorado State. I would still like to see 1 or 2 just to more so shut people up, right? Number 4, I actually don't want to see too much in general. You would like to have a comfortable lead going into the 4th quarter. Maybe Quinn being on the bench in the 5th and the 4th quarter is actually my number 5 point, being on the bench in the 4th quarter and letting Arch play, because you have that much of a lead, right? So against Colorado State, you don't want to take anyone, you don't want to overlook anyone, especially when Colorado State has a pretty good offense. But Texas should still take care of business, and Quinn Ewers, you just want to see him get comfortable, stay healthy, complete a few passes, and get out of there. All right, South Carolina versus Old Dominion. Lenore Sellers, first game as the starting quarterback for South Carolina. This is a guy who has a lot of hype around him, like several of these new starting quarterbacks. And it's against Old Dominion. I think they're 3 touchdown favorites, 21-point favorites. I don't think Old Dominion is going to be as bad as people think right now. Like their win total was 4.5 and maybe juiced towards the under, if I remember correctly. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I don't think they're going to be as bad as people are projecting. But what I want to see from Sellers against Old Dominion, well, I also want to see Sellers do the small things. I want to run the offense. I want to manage the offense. I want to make sure I'm getting the plays in and out efficiently. I wouldn't mind seeing a fun few plays where Sellers uses his legs and is able to have a big run or a big throw outside the pocket by avoiding pressure. But I still don't want to see too much. But like I said, I think Old Dominion is going to be a better team than given credit for. I've heard some people talk about upset in this situation for South Carolina. I don't think that's the case. That would be atrocious and terrible for Gamecock fans if Old Dominion did pull off the upset. But for but for Lenore Sellers, I just want to see him run the offense, get comfortable in the offense, a fun play or 2, and be up where you could just coast in the 4th quarter and hand the ball off. Right, we got 2 more games in this category, the should win, and that's going to be Alabama against Western Kentucky and Kentucky against Southern Miss. One more quick swig of water. Again, this is your first time tuning in. We're going to do these SEC quarterback shows on a weekly basis, previews, and then we'll have a recap. So 2 shows a week, and we'll also be putting out more kind of game breakdown content and footage where we spend more than just 3 or 4 minutes talking about each team, maybe more like 8 to 10 with an actual deeper breakdown. All right, let's go ahead and Bama, Western Kentucky. I don't have much on this with Jalen Milroe against Western Kentucky. By the way, TJ Finley just named the starting quarterback for Western Kentucky, former LSU, former Auburn, former Texas State. Great great season at Texas State. So now hopefully you can do it at Western Kentucky. But right now, Bama is like, 31-point favorites last time I checked. So if you're Jalen Milroe, new offense with DeBoer, what do you want to see from Milroe? You just want to see him have fun. You just want to see him manage the team. You want to see them not have to be in the game in the fourth quarter, kind of like we talked about with Quinn Ewers. You want to see him on the bench in the fourth quarter relax, and you don't want him to have to use his legs or take any unnecessary hits. You don't want to have to push the ball downfield when it's not called for, right? You have superior athletes. Let those guys go ahead and win, right? So if you're Jalen Milroe, if you're a fan of Alabama, you want to see him just get comfortable with the new offense, get settled in, and just I'm interested to see what the sideline's like, right? But at the same time, even when Bama was up by 6-7 touchdowns, Saban was still coaching his tail off, right? So I'm kind of interested to see how DeBoer and the coaching staff handle that if they're in a position where they're up by that much. Last game in the category of just should win, Kentucky against Southern Miss. Brock Vandagriff, a quarterback I was really high on and I actually thought was going to beat out Carson Beck last year, and I was absolutely wrong, right? But I'm excited to see him in a role as a starter, right? This is his first time being the guy. So it's like, how are you managing that during practice? How are you managing that during meetings? Now it's really time to show against Southern Miss. So you just want to get the new offense broken in. You want to get a feel and a rhythm to it. I think you want to get a lead early. Like we've seen Kentucky in the past kind of play around with these teams, and it's a game kind of later on in the game, the third, fourth quarter. I think right now they're 28-point favorites. So hopefully they're up by 28 points entering the fourth quarter. But I think Southern Miss has a chance to be a lot better than they have in the past few years. They got a great fan base. They just named Tate Rodemaker, their quarterback. So they have a chance to be a lot better. But if you're Brock Vandagriff, if you're Kentucky, you don't want to be a game in the fourth quarter, right? But at the same time, get the offense broken in. Hopefully it's not that case. Hopefully you're in a good position where you're up by a good amount where Vandagriff doesn't have to finish the game. But if he does, I think more experience as a starter, the better, right? Again, I'm excited to see Vandagriff. I don't have a ton on this game, but I think Southern Miss could be a tougher out than given credit for. Okay, two more categories, and we'll wrap this up. We have upset category. That's Vandy against Vatech. And then we have the easy games, but you better not blow it category, right? Vandy against Vatech. Vatech is like the media's darling this year, and I'm on board with it. I think Kyron Jones is a stud quarterback. He's from Texas, so maybe I'm a bit biased being a Texas kid myself. But I think Vatech could be the real deal. It's 13.5 points. I think they're the favorite right now. So if you're Vanderbilt, if you're Diego Pavia, which I don't know if they've named the starting quarterback, I'm just going to go ahead with Pavia. Maybe it's Nate Johnson, the transfer quarterback from Utah, who's got blazing speed. Regardless who it is, you're going to have to make some plays that people aren't expecting you to make to win this game. Anytime you're close to a 2-touchdown favorite, especially week one, especially being Vanderbilt, especially coming off a season that wasn't great last year, you're going to have to make some plays that people aren't expecting you to make. And if it's Pavia, I thought he did a great job in New Mexico State. He's just a football player. And we saw him have a big game against Auburn. So it's not like they can't upset Vatech. Now he's got more and better experienced weapons around him than he did in New Mexico State. So we saw a guy with a chip on his shoulder. We saw an athletic quarterback. Both these guys are athletic. Nate Johnson, Diego Pavia, whoever ends up being the guy. Again, as of this recording, I don't know if they've named a starting quarterback. But I think both are going to have to use their legs and threaten the defense with their legs, which hopefully opens up the pass game for them to pull off the upset. Okay, so we got 6. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got 6 games where an SEC team is playing an FCS team. 7 games if you include Temple. Temple is so bad. OU is like a 43-point favorite. So I just threw it in this category. Easy games, better not blow it. So we'll hit this real quick because there's really not a ton to break down, right? Still want to hit on everything, though. Arkansas playing UAPB, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. Pine Bluff is a bad FCS team. They were 2-9 last year, so you better damn sure be up by 6 or 7 scores in the fourth quarter. So if you're Taylor Green, what do you want to accomplish for your fan? What do you want to see from Taylor Green? Stay healthy. Let your athletes win the game, essentially. Just give them the ball, let them be superior, which they are. And I don't want to see him run his legs too much. I was talking to an Arkansas fan. They kind of disagree. They wanted to see him run the ball and take some hits to get comfortable, which I get. But he's going to take plenty of hits next week against Oklahoma State. So run the offense, get comfortable with Petrino's offense, work on your accuracy. That's one of the things you need to work on. Feel good about the game and get out. All right, Mizzou against Murray State. Murray State was pretty bad in the FCS as well, 2-9. Last year, we got Brady Cook coming in. There's really not much I want to see from Cook except just to get out. right? Kind of like Quinn Ewers. You're a veteran quarterback now. You're not really having to get comfortable with anything. You're one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. You showed it last year. Just get out. Just don't screw up. All right, Oklahoma against Temple. EJ Warner left for Temple, their quarterback, which is probably why they're going to be so bad this year. Last year, they were 3-9 with one conference win. This is Jackson Arnold's first game starting that's not a bowl game, right? So what do you want to see? What do you want to see him manage the offense? I don't really care about the stats per se. Now, hopefully it's a big game and he's out by the fourth quarter, but you want to see him manage the offense, get the play calls in efficiently, deliver the plays to the offensive line efficiently, and just communicate efficiently. Those are my biggest takeaways that I want to see from Arnold against here. Then we got Tennessee against Chattanooga. Kind of the same thing with Nico Iamaleava. Chattanooga was a better FCS team than others. They were 8-5 and actually won an FCS playoff game last year. But still, you want to see him out by the fourth quarter. Just manage and run the offense. Mississippi State against Eastern Kentucky. Blake Shapen for Mississippi State, the former Baylor quarterback. Eastern Kentucky was 5-6 last year as an FCS opponent. Now, why Mississippi State doesn't have the talent and Shapen isn't as talented as other quarterbacks we talked about. He's got more experience and has been starting off and on for the past 2 years for Baylor. So you just want to see him get comfortable in Mississippi State's offense. They're probably going to continue to view this as a practice, as most of these teams will. We got Auburn against Alabama A&M. Alabama A&M 5-6. Peyton Thorne. What do you want to see? Well, you've heard about all the new receivers, so you want to see the receivers get broken in. You want to see the receivers kind of make some plays, but again, you don't want to show too much here. Then Ole Miss against Furman. Furman's probably the best FCS opponent on this SEC Week 1 schedule, this slate. Furman was 10-3 last year, had an FCS playoff win, and they lost to Montana in overtime, right? So, again, Jackson Dart, kind of similar to Brady Cook, like we talked about, veteran starting quarterback. They should be up by plenty in the fourth quarter. You just want to manage the game, get your feet wet as far as the season goes, and prep game week. But, again, you don't want to show too much here, right? So, again, 4 categories. We have the big games, which we talked about, what we want to see from Connor Weigman against Notre Dame, what we want to see from Garrett Nussmeier against USC, Graham Mertz against Miami, and then Carson Beck against Clemson. Then we talked about these easy games that should win. Then we talked about the upset, Vandy against Tech, and the easiest games where you better not blow it, right? So 4 kind of categories this week. And we'll be keeping track of each SEC quarterback to see how they did this week, and we'll have a SEC recap show probably Sunday, maybe Monday. Maybe if you have any thoughts, let me know when would be the preferred choice next week. And then next week, we'll, of course, have the SEC Week 2 preview. Again, if you like SEC quarterback content, real kind of specific niche-based stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us grow. Like and share. All that YouTube stuff really does help. And we have big game breakdowns for the bigger games that we talked about earlier today. If you want more of a deeper dive, go ahead and find those videos in our channel. But as always, thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below if you're watching this and it's not a live show. And keep following us along. It helps the channel grow. We'll see you next time. Peace.